Good day. Today we're going to discuss chronic heart failure, the disease orientation, and therapeutics management for heart failure. So, before I discuss the characteristics and the clinical hallmark for heart failure, allow me to describe or compare a normal heart and a failing heart. So, as you can see in the picture, a normal heart has sufficient volume of blood and an oxygen rich blood that is pumped out to the body, and it is being distributed throughout the body. Now, this is made possible by the left ventricle, which is not too narrow and not too dilated. Okay, and this is supported by the septum or the wall, which divides the left and the right heart of the heart. Okay, now as compared to the failing heart, you can see that a failing heart has a reduced volume or a lower volume of blood that is being pumped out of the body, no? So it's pumped out of the body. Now this is because of a dilated ventricle, which holds a portion of the blood that is supposed to go out towards the body. And as you can see, there is also a significant reduction in the thickness of the septum or the heart wall. Okay, so in general, that's how we characterize a heart that is normal and a failing heart. Now, if you're going to go into a detailed description on what failing heart is or what heart failure is, this can be defined by means of describing the breathing difficulty and the ability of the body to perform its daily activities. Okay, so as we define heart failure, it is said to be a common condition that is affecting the quality of life, that is causing fatigue, breathlessness, and edema. So when we say it's a heart failure, a chronic heart failure, we are referring to a condition resulting from the deficiency in the heart function to pump, which means the heart fails to perform its function, which is basically to pump out blood. So when there is a reduction or a deficiency in the functionality of the heart, then therefore there is insufficiency in the delivery of the blood, the oxygen, as well as the nutrients, okay, that would somehow fulfill the needs of the tissues. So lahat ng ating mga cells and tissues are going to be deprived of oxygen when there is chronic heart failure. Now, it is also described as a complex condition that is associated with a number of symptoms that arise from either the defects in the left ventricular filling or emptying, of which symptoms like breathlessness, fatigue, and ankle swelling are most commonly observed. Okay, now your question might be, who are most likely affected by heart failure? Who among the population, who among the many walks of life of people are affected by heart failure? So based on epidemiology, it says here that roughly around 0.3% to 2% of the population at large are affected by heart failure, and of which around 3 to 5% in the population of those who are affected are over 65 years of age. So, as you can see, heart failure is a uh, common condition that is associated with deterioration. So, common sila or observed sila commonly sa mga nagkakaedad over 65 years of age. Now, of people that are over 65 years of age, 8 to 16% of them are over 75 years. Now, once a person has been diagnosed with heart failure, particularly chronic heart failure, the median survival is only around 5 years after diagnosis, which means it would really significantly reduce the lifespan. Why? Because the heart is one of the centers of life. No, so once the centers of life um, are affected, then therefore that would be a significant cause of mortality or a significant possibility of mortality. So once a person has been diagnosed with chronic heart failure, then there is only a limited time left for survival. So that's roughly around 5 years after diagnosis. So it's very important that once we discover that a person has chronic heart failure, it's a must that we address all the accompanying symptoms. Okay, so there. Now, the degree of likelihood of fatality, of course, depends on the level or the degree of severity of heart failure. Now, the New York Heart Association or the NYHA has come up with a classification on the functional status of patients having heart failure. So this one would describe how hardly would be for somebody who have heart failure to do his or her daily activities. So if a patient is classified under heart failure class 1, then most of the time a patient has no symptoms with ordinary physical activity. So a person with class 1 heart failure will be able to perform normal physical activities with no or minimal difficulty of breathing. Okay, while class 2 would mean there is a slight limitation as for the chest pain or difficulty of breathing, like or dyspnea, which we call dyspnea whenever there is moderate to severe exertion. So here there would be a slight limitation in terms of activities like simple exercise, walking, or running. So there would be slight limitation on physical activities. Okay, while for class 3, okay, for heart failure class 3, there is already a marked limitation of activity, which is less than ordinary activity, which is causing dyspnea, which means a little effort could cause chest pain or difficulty in breathing. So a person with class 3 heart failure are advised, okay, patients with class 3 are advised to have little to no physical activities that would require them to exert much effort, okay, because that would cause them to experience chest pain or possibly dizziness, or they may pass out. Okay, so that would be her for class 3. While for class 4 is a class of heart failure patients wherein there is a severe disability, okay, wherein even they are resting, they encounter chest pain, they encounter difficulty of breathing while they are resting. So usually patients with this class 4 are advised to seek for urgent or immediate medical attention. So they will have to be resting, okay, and they are not advised to move, okay, and do physical activities, as this may be very fatal for them. Okay, so that would be the four classes of heart failure based on the New York Heart Association classification. Now, you might be asking, what what can cause heart failure, or what can cause the heart to fail? So there are several, no there are several factors that may increase the likelihood of somebody having heart failure later in their life. So the first the first factor would be age, as I have mentioned in the epidemiology, that most of the patients with heart failure are of old age. But other than that, heart failure can also be a consequence of a lot of factors, including myocardial infarction. a coronary artery disease and hypertension, and this is also associated a uh, with a chronic condition such as hyperlipidemia. So fat or chronic fat buildup in the arteries, unmanaged or uncontrolled dyslipidemia and hypertension can also lead to heart failure. And apart from that, other problems like congenital conditions or other heart conditions may also precipitate the failing of the heart. So, for example, aortic stenosis, atrial fibrillation, as well as cardiomyopathy and valve defects. So, for example, valve defect. Normally, ang valve defects are somewhat congenital, or there are also other patients or people who have valve defects as a consequence of rheumatic heart disease. So, these are not commonly seen in older patients, but most often they are encountered in younger population to mid-age. Okay, then another factor that may also precipitate or may likely lead to heart failure are hyperthyroidism, which may cause problem with the heart and may possibly lead to heart failure, as well as anemia because of their um, increased demands for oxygen. So when you have anemia, we have deficiency, we have oxygen deficit. So the heart would really work hard to be able to supply or provide the needed demand for oxygen. Okay, then other than that, most of the patients with the heart failure are people who are having a dysfunction in their left ventricle. So 50% of people with LVSD suffer from heart failure, or they lead to heart failure. Okay, so most often than not, heart failure is somehow related to the ventricular problem, which is described earlier in the comparison between a normal heart and a failing heart. So the functionality of the heart depends greatly on the ventricle, okay, in the relaxation of the heart. Okay, so if the heart fails to relax, then therefore the heart overworks, and most often failure of the heart to relax would lead to heart failure. Okay, now let's proceed to the manifestation. So, how do we know if we have heart failure, or what are the signs, the early signs and the late signs of heart failure? So, first is the reduced cardiac output and impaired oxygenation. Okay, as a result of diminished blood supply to the tissues, okay, causing fatigue. So, a person with congestive heart failure or a chronic heart failure will experience fatigue, a chronic fatigue, okay, a shortness of breathing, whether resting or whether exerting. Okay, and patients who have heart failure will also experience having cough at night or nocturnal cough, and gasping for air when you have um, difficulty of breathing, as well as increased urination at night. So nocturia, nocturnal cough, and gasping for air, as well as having pale hands and cold and sweaty hands. Okay, and because of the insufficiency of the blood to be distributed in the circulation, or because of the poor distribution of oxygen throughout the body, particularly the brain, then there would be a possible confusion, okay, for patients with heart failure. And heart failure can also precipitate other problems like renal failure, hepatomegaly, or the enlargement of the liver, okay, and most commonly, this can lead to edema okay, affecting the lungs. So there would be instances wherein you feel like you're drowning, okay, and the edema may also affect the ankle, the abdomen, okay, and the feet, okay, and if the edema affects the lungs at most, then usually a patient would experience having a frothy sputum, okay, wherein the sputum has a lot of bubbles, okay, and it's stained red, which means there could be a possible sign of having blood, okay, and in a worst case or in severe case, heart failure may lead to cyanosis due to the insufficiency of blood circulating in the body, and of course cardiogenic shock. Okay, now how do we investigate this, or how do we make sure that we're dealing with the correct problem, or we're dealing with the right problem? So before addressing it, or before proposing a plan, or before targeting a certain treatment, how do we know if we are really dealing with the right thing, or we are how we are working on the right case? So for investigations, usually heart failure can be very easy to determine based on the signs and symptoms, or the clinical symptoms. Patients are also evaluated, okay, based on their exercise tolerance. So usually a patient on a possible heart failure, okay, case is being asked to do a stress test or a treadmill test, wherein while doing it, um 2D echo is being run, ECG is being run, okay, and this is somehow supported by a different lab test like arterial blood gases, creatinine to determine the state of kidney health, okay, yung liver, okay, yung ating liver enzyme function test like AST and ALT. In general, we also check for the CBC, thyroid function, and the fasting blood sugar. Okay, now once all these things are confirmed based on the algorithm as defined in this illustration, okay, we'll now be proposing for treatment. So the treatment options available for heart failure are as follows, no? Okay, so using mnemonics, the treatment for heart failure is abbreviated as unload fast, wherein U stands for upright position. So a patient with heart failure are advised to assume an upright position, or at least when a person sleeps, um, he or she must assume a more upright position to prevent drowning. Okay, then N stands for nitrates, L stands for Lasix, a particular diuretic, O stands for oxygen, which is a supportive treatment, A stands for ACE inhibitors, which helps balance the electrolytes and help control blood pressure. Then D is for digoxin, that will help strengthen the heart when the heart is starting to fail. Then FAST stands for F, fluids. So when we say fluids, we are pertaining to a reduced fluid volume, or we try to lessen the fluid intake and infusions. So stands for decrease after load, which means we try to promote relaxation of the heart. So that's decrease after load, or the pressure that is required to relax the heart. Okay, so we try to decrease that. S stands for sodium restrictions, and T stands for monitoring for certain tests such as digoxin and potassium as well as sodium levels. So that is meant by unload fast. So those are the options. Now, the basic or the major treatment given to patients with heart failure usually is um, s- focus on the use of diuretics, because the main consequence of having heart failure is edema. So edema may cause breathing difficulty, um, uh, coughing. So in order for us to reduce all those symptoms, we need to reduce the blood volume, or we need to lessen the body fluid. Okay, so that would help relieve pulmonary hypertension, pulmonary congestion, and other problems like peripheral edema. Okay, the second choice of medication, which is given primarily for for heart failure, is your ACE inhibitors, which is considered the first line for patients with heart failure, which are diagnosed based on the dysfunction of the left ventricular systolic function. Okay, so these inhibitors would help reduce the preload as well as the afterload. Okay, so that would really help increase the cardiac output of a person having a failing heart. Okay, so there, and of course we also consider other line of medications, which include ARBs, or the angiotensin 2 receptor blockers. Okay, so ARBs are used to replace ACE. So when there's a problem with coughing or too much coughing, and it is becoming very inconvenient for the patient to cough, especially at night, then a good replacement or a good alternative would be the angiotensin 2 receptor blockers. Okay, now if there is uh, a concerning symptom, like there is chest pain due to the overworking of the heart to compensate, then usually beta blockers are being recommended. However, beta blockers are not given. Okay, this is contraindicated with patients having respiratory failure. So if there is a respiratory arrest or there are respiratory symptoms, then beta blockers are not uh, being recommended. Okay, so there. So we have to be very, very careful when it comes to advising which treatment options to give for a patient with chronic heart failure. Now, other than that, there are other no, there are other treatments, or there are other treatment options being given. So that include aldosterone antagonist, which is a diuretic. So if furosemide doesn't work, then spironolactone can also be given in order to reduce sodium and water retention. Then, in order to further strengthen the heart, inotropic agents such as digoxin are also um, being given, and the patient is encouraged to take this because that would help increase the cardiac contractility, okay, or the contractility of the heart. Then when there are instances wherein there's chest pain, there's SOB, okay, patients are being given nitrates to help dilate the veins, to help reduce pain, help lower the blood pressure, at the same time relieve pulmonary congestion. So of the many nitrates, it is preferred to give the isosorbide mononitrate because it is longer acting. So the doses of 10 to 20 milligrams isosorbide mononitrate, and its equivalent 20 milligram isosorbide dinitrate are somehow prescribed frequently for heart failure patients. Now, aside from these choices, there are also new drugs for chronic heart failure. So, we have here angiotensin receptor neprilysin inhibitors, or the ARNIs. Okay, this is a new class of medications used to treat heart failure. Okay, by improving the ejection fraction. So, the ARNIs would help improve the ejection fraction by combining the effects of an ARB and a neprilysin inhibitor. So, a good example of this is Entresto, which is um, a combination of sacubitril and valsartan. Okay, another beta blocker, which is a newer one that is preferred for heart failure patient, is ivabradine, which is um, known for its trade name Coralan. Okay, This helps slow the heart rate in patients, especially those with reduced ejection fraction. So, in order for a patient to become less symptomatic, ivabradine is preferred by some doctors. Okay, so there. Now, with regards to guidelines, how do we manage heart failure? So, management of heart failure depends on the accompanying symptoms. So, if there's breathing difficulty, then we try to support it, like giving oxygen. If there is a chest pain, we give something that would help dilate the veins and would have to slow down the heart rate a bit to lessen possibility of palpitations and tachycardia. If there is edema, then we give diuretics. So it is mostly supportive in the sense that we have to look into the symptoms that accompany the heart failure. Okay, and the another thing with management is we need to know what are the monitoring actions that we need to take. Like for example, when somebody is taking the digoxin, then it's very important that we monitor the levels of potassium of a patient, and we have to ascertain whether or not the patient requires potassium supplementation or not. Then it's also very important that we monitor the kidney function, like for example urination, the GFR rate, creatinine rate, and so on and so forth, and of course the liver. So there. And another thing that we need to take into consideration for a patient with heart failure is to maintain a healthy diet and a fitting exercise for the patient. Remember, we have class 1 to class 4. So the kind of exercise or kind of physical activity that is to be recommended for a heart failure patient depends greatly on the classification. So if a patient has very minimal symptoms, then a patient is also advised to do very light exercise. But if a person has severe, severe symptoms associated with the heart failure, then it is not advised to do exercises. Okay, but for all types of heart failure, whether it's class 1 to class 4, it is advised to always comply with medications and to have a DASH diet, which is very low in sodium, okay, low in fat, of course, and most importantly, to maintain a healthy diet. Okay, so there, I will end here, and please continue reading on the case study. Okay, so case study is included in the slide, so kindly study and make your own analysis of the case. Thank you.